He had always been a man who blended into the land. Weathered hands, worn boots, a quiet presence that spoke only when necessary. But that morning, when Silas Ward saw his maid limping across the kitchen floor, he realized there were secrets lurking deeper than the valleys surrounding his ranch. Secrets that could shake the sheriff's office to its core. The storm of what was to come hadn't yet arrived, but its first gust had already begun. The ranch house stood in the valley as if it had been hewn from the earth itself. All rough-hewn wood and honest labor. Silas had built it with his own hands 15 years ago. Every beam and plank laid with care and determination. His life had always been simple, rooted in hard work, fair dealings, and keeping one's word. He paid his help on time, never asked questions about their past, and expected nothing more than diligence in return. Mercy Whitmore had arrived 3 months prior. Desperation etched across her youthful face, barely 20, yet her eyes carried the wear of decades. She needed work. He needed help. That was enough. Mercy kept to herself, doing her duties without complaint. In Silas's experience, quiet people often held truths worth hearing when they finally spoke. But this morning was different. As Silas stepped in from checking the cattle, boots heavy on the porch, he caught sight of her through the window. Mercy moved across the kitchen floor as if each step cost her, her right leg dragging slightly, her face tensing with a pain she tried to mask. He lingered there, observing. Something about her movements told him the trouble was more serious than he'd anticipated. The careful way she favored one side, the way she bent to retrieve a spoon, it reminded him of his old horse. Recovering from a bad fall, Silas opened the door, hinges groaning. Mercy straightened instantly, but he had already seen enough. Her pallor and the flicker in her eyes made his chest tighten, a mixture of fear and restraint. "Morning, Mr. Ward, coffee is almost ready." Her voice, light yet fragile, carried the same energy of an injured animal, trying to convince the world it was unharmed. Silas hung his hat and studied her. The slight tremor in her hands, the rigid shoulders, the controlled movements, it all spoke of a story she wasn't ready to tell. And Silas Ward had spent enough years reading the subtle language of the land, the quiet signals of pain and danger, to know something was gravely wrong. Accepting the cup she handed him, he felt the chill of her skin, noted the flinch not born of surprise but of expectation. She turned her back, busying herself with pointless chores, wiping already clean counters, rearranging objects with mechanical precision. It was a performance of normalcy masking fear. "Mercy," he said softly. She froze, hands stilling mid-motion. "Yes, sir." "You're hurt, not a question." Both understood the truth in the silence that followed. Outside, a meadowlark's song floated across the valley. Inside, the soft tick of the mantel clock and the uneven rhythm of Mercy's breathing marked the passing moments. When she finally faced him, the evidence of abuse was impossible to miss. A split lip, a yellowed bruise along her cheekbone, hidden partly by her hair. Her eyes revealed the truth, resignation, and disbelief in a future better than her present. "I fell," she said too quickly, awkwardly. "Tripped down the stairs yesterday." Silas set his cup down with deliberate calm, recognizing a lie as hollow as an abandoned silo. "Show me these stairs," he said. Her face went pale, hesitation sharp in the air. They both knew the small cabin behind the main house had no stairs. Silas had built that cabin himself. The lie was thin, desperate, and transparent. She wrung her apron, a momentary flicker of honesty almost escaping. Then she lifted her chin with quiet defiance. "I should get back to my work," she said. Silas watched her leave, the measured, careful steps of someone who had learned to protect herself by hiding the truth. He made a decision then, a resolution that would shape the coming days. Someone was hurting Mercy Whitmore, and he intended to find out who. Whoever it was, they would learn the cost of crossing a man who had spent a lifetime believing protection was not just duty, it was sacred. That afternoon, Silas took a step he had never taken before. He watched his own land like a stranger might, eyes scanning the paths and shadows. He stationed himself near the barn, pretending to repair a harness while tracking movement toward Mercy's cabin. As the sun began its descent, a rider appeared. Even from afar, Silas recognized the slouched posture and arrogant gait. Deputy Vernon Briggs. The man rode with entitlement, badge glinting in the fading light. The kind of man whose cruelty was as pronounced as his swagger. Briggs dismounted near Mercy's cabin, tying his horse with a casual arrogance. This was no official visit. The deputy glanced around before rapping sharply on her door, the sound carrying across the yard. The door opened almost immediately, Mercy's posture submissive, wary. Through the barn's shadows, Silas read their silent exchange like an open book. Briggs forced his way in. She stepped back, shrinking under the intrusion. The door closed. Silas felt his fists clench instinctively, a storm building inside him. He longed to confront the deputy, to settle matters as his father. Might with fists and principle, but restraint held him back. He needed clarity before action. 20 minutes passed, each one stretching longer than the last. Silas paced, leaving a groove in the dirt, jaw clenched tight enough to ache. Finally, the door opened again. Briggs emerged first, adjusting his gun belt, triumphant. Mercy followed, moving more cautiously than ever, pain etched into her every motion. Briggs mounted and rode off, whistling, a taunt to the valley. Mercy lingered in her doorway before retreating inside. Silas remained in the dusk, fragments of the puzzle falling into place. A young woman powerless, tormented by a deputy who wielded authority like a weapon. Now he knew why she had been limping. The question that lingered was what he would do about it. Morning broke gray and heavy, clouds draping the valley like a woolen blanket. Silas had spent the night staring at the ceiling, mind racing. By dawn, his course was set. He found Mercy in the kitchen again, her movements slower, more careful. She avoided his gaze, hiding fresh bruises under her hair. A cold weight settled in his chest. "Mercy," he said gently yet firmly. "I need you to tell me the truth." She froze mid-step, coffee pot trembling in her hands. "Sir, Deputy Briggs, he's been coming around here, hasn't he?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Silas kept calm, but his inner rage simmered. Her composure broke, shoulders shaking. "You don't understand. He's a deputy. Who would believe me over him? Who would care what happens to someone like me?" She spoke in a rush, recounting her flight from the east. Briggs's immediate attention and coercion, the threats of vanishing into the mountains, of being made to disappear. Her voice fell to a whisper. "He said he's done it before." Silas felt a chill in his veins. This wasn't mere cruelty. This was pure, calculated evil. "Why didn't you leave town?" he asked. Mercy laughed bitterly, eyes wet with unshed tears. "With what money? Where would I go? I was under his watch. No one would hire me. No one would help me. You were the only one who offered work." Silas rose, hands flat on the table, voice steady and commanding. "He won't hurt you anymore." Fear battled reason in her eyes. "Mr. Ward, you can't. He'll kill you or use the law against you." He paused, hand on the doorframe, looking back. "There's something you should know. Mercy, I may not talk much, but I make sure the right thing gets done." He stepped out into the gray morning, leaving her staring after him, a mixture of fear and tentative hope in her gaze. The walk to town would take an hour, enough time to plan exactly how he would confront Vernon Briggs. One way or another, it would end today. The town of Cedar Falls lay in a dusty hollow, Main Street lined with buildings bearing the weight of years and neglect. Silas walked with the quiet determination of a man who had already made up his mind. Silas found Deputy Vernon Briggs exactly where he expected, leaning against the post outside the saloon, badge catching the weak morning light, talking loudly enough for half the street to hear about some hapless soul he'd run out of town the week before. Briggs thrived on attention, a predator who needed witnesses to his cruelty. Silas stopped 10 feet away, letting the growing crowd take notice. The deputy finally registered him, eyes narrowing as something in Silas's stance shifted Briggs's confidence. The hand that had drifted toward his gun now hovered, uncertain. Well, if it isn't the hermit rancher." Briggs sneered. "What brings you to town, Ward?" The words were loud, deliberate, carrying the smirk of someone used to intimidation. "I came to talk about Mercy Whitmore," Silas replied, each word dropping into the morning air like a stone hitting still water. Briggs's face flickered, surprise, calculation, then a slow, ugly smile. "Don't know who you mean," Briggs said, though his eyes hardened, betraying guilt. "I think you do," Silas said, stepping closer. "I think you know her well." The tension was electric, drawing the attention of shopkeepers, farmers and families peeking from doorways. Silas welcomed witnesses. There would be no hiding this confrontation. "You got something to say to me, Ward?" "Say it plain," Briggs demanded, hand now resting openly on his gun. Silas scanned the faces around him. People who had endured Briggs's cruelty for too long, too afraid to challenge him. He saw the fear, the silent hope, the readiness for someone to stand. "I'm saying you've been hurting a woman who works for me," Silas announced. His voice rang clear, deliberate. "I'm saying you're a coward, using your badge to prey on those who can't fight back." The street fell silent. Horses shifted uneasily in their posts. Briggs's face flushed, first red, then purple with rage. "That's a serious accusation, Ward. You got proof of these lies?" He spat. Silas reached into his vest and withdrew a folded piece of paper, holding it in plain sight. Briggs's eyes locked onto it instinctively, his reaction betraying guilt before any words were spoken. "See the thing about secrets," Silas said slowly, unfolding the paper as if it contained the weight of the law itself, "is that they have a way of coming to light when you least expect it." Briggs drew his gun fast, but Silas was already moving. 15 years on a ranch had honed reflexes like a mountain cat's. The bullet whined past his ear, splintering the post behind him. The crowd scattered, clattering and stumbling, but Silas rolled to his feet and charged. Briggs fumbled for a second shot. Silas's shoulder struck the deputy midsection, driving them both against the saloon wall with a force that rattled the windows. They grappled, hands locking around the gun. Briggs cursed, spit flying as he struggled to regain control. Silas's hands, hardened by years of hauling timber and wrangling cattle, crushed and twisted until the weapon fell. The gun skittered across the wooden walkway, coming to rest at the boots of Marshal Kane, who arrived just in time. "That's enough." Kane's voice boomed, calm but commanding. His gun was drawn but aimed at the ground. "Both of you step back." Silas released Briggs, chest heaving, fists unclenching. The deputy slumped against the wall, nursing his wrist, eyes blazing with pure hatred. "He attacked me," Briggs snarled. "Tried to kill me. Arrest him." But Kane read the crowd, the faces of townsfolk who had suffered under Briggs's oppression for years. Something had shifted. Someone had finally stood up. "Is that true?" Kane asked the gathered people. "This man attacked a deputy without cause?" Silence lingered, heavy and uncomfortable. Then Mrs. Henderson, the boarding house owner, stepped forward. "Marshal," she said, voice trembling but firm, "there are things you need to know about your deputy." "Don't listen to her," Briggs hissed. "She's crazy." "They're all crazy." But more voices joined in. The blacksmith spoke of threats against his daughter. A shopkeeper recounted missing money after searches by Briggs. Stories piled one upon another, painting the deputy as a man who used authority to terrorize instead of protect. Kane's expression grew darker with every revelation. When the crowd fell silent, he faced Briggs with a look that could have cut stone. "Vernon," he said quietly, "you'd better tell me the truth about Mercy Whitmore." "I don't know any Mercy Whitmore." "Don't," Briggs began, but Kane's voice cut through him like steel. "Don't lie. Not anymore." Silas stepped forward, hands clearly visible. "Marshal, there's a young woman working on my ranch who's been terrorized by your deputy for months. Her body carries the proof of what a decent man shouldn't see inflicted on anyone." Kane considered Silas's words, aware of the man's reputation, honest, silent, unflinching. Ward spoke only when necessary, and if he spoke now, it was serious. "These are serious charges," Kane said carefully. "They're lies," Briggs snapped, voice cracking with desperation. "You can't believe these people over a sworn officer." Silas revealed the final piece of evidence, the torn fabric found near Mercy's cabin that matched the shirt Briggs wore that day. Kane's gaze shifted from the cloth to the deputy's shirt, back to Silas. Justice, long delayed, would finally be served. "Vernon Briggs, you're under arrest." The jail cell door clanged behind Briggs, echoing through the town like the toll of reckoning. Kane hung the key on the hook behind his desk, visible to all. The former deputy sat on the narrow bunk, head in hands, realizing his reign of terror was over. "I'll need you to bring Miss Whitmore to town tomorrow," Kane told Silas. "She'll give her statement officially." "She'll be here," Silas replied. "And Ward?" Kane's face bore the weight of regret and gratitude. "Thank you. Should have seen it. Should have stopped it sooner." "We all should have," Silas said, calm but resolute. "But it stops now." Returning to the ranch, Silas thought of what came next. Mercy would need time to heal, to trust she was safe. He found her on the porch of her cabin, staring at the mountains as if seeing them for the first time. Hearing his horse, she stood slowly, face filled with cautious curiosity. "It's done," Silas said simply, dismounting. "Briggs is in jail. He won't harm you or anyone else again." Mercy sank onto the steps, knees giving way, tears spilling freely. Not silent, desperate cries, but the kind that wash away months of fear. "I can't believe it," she whispered. "You thought he'd always—" "You were wrong," Silas said gently. "Sometimes courage isn't measured in gunfire or armies, but in the resolve to stand and speak when it matters most." They sat quietly as the sun painted the mountains gold and crimson. The ranch felt different now, peaceful, shadows lifted. "What happens now?" Mercy asked. "Now you heal," Silas replied. "Now you remember safety. And if you stay, there's work here. Honest work. As for what people ask, let them ask. Truth spreads faster than lies once spoken." As the stars emerged in the darkening sky, Mercy Whitmore smiled for the first time in months. A fragile, real smile. For Silas Ward, who rarely relied on words or gestures, that smile was worth every risk taken. The night settled over the valley like a heavy quilt, stars beginning to prick the sky. Silas walked the porch one last time, listening to the wind stirring the tall grasses. The ranch had regained its quiet, but the memory of what had happened lingered, a reminder of the line he'd been willing to cross to protect what was right. Mercy sat on the steps, shoulders slumped, but the tension that had haunted her every movement was finally gone. "You'll be safe now," Silas said, voice low, carrying more certainty than any words could have before. She looked up, eyes bright and vulnerable, searching for reassurance that the promise was real. "I still can't believe he's gone," she whispered. "Sometimes it just takes one person willing to stand," Silas said. "One person willing to say enough is enough. That's all it takes to start the change." She nodded slowly, tears still damp on her cheeks, but a new strength stirring in her posture. For the first time, she allowed herself to breathe without flinching at every sound. The next days passed quietly, the rhythm of the ranch slowly returning to normal. Silas checked on Mercy frequently, offering guidance, support, and space for her to regain her confidence. The mountains, once shadows of fear in her mind, became something she could admire again, not dread. Silas's presence was steady, silent, but powerful. She began tending the kitchen and the gardens with measured steps, each one a reclaiming of her life. The town of Cedar Falls felt different too. People who had once feared Briggs walked a little taller, shoulders less burdened. Word of the deputy's arrest spread quickly, carried by whispers and cautious conversation, and then by the townsfolk who realized justice could arrive even in the harshest corners of the valley. Silas had not only protected Mercy, but reminded the people around him that courage could change the rules of fear. Mercy herself began to smile more, sometimes laughing quietly to herself, a sound she had not allowed for months. It was a slow process, but every small victory, every day she moved without wincing, every task completed without hesitation, was a triumph. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the distant ridges painting the sky in amber and rose, Mercy brought Silas a cup of tea to the porch. She handed it to him with hands steady now, eyes no longer hiding behind fear. "Thank you," she said simply, but with a weight that carried all the gratitude she had held silent for so long. "You don't need to thank me," Silas replied, accepting the cup. "Just keep living, keep working, and don't let anyone tell you who you are or what you're worth. That's all that matters." They sat in companionable silence, letting the quiet of the valley settle over them, a blanket of calm after the storm. The seasons began to shift, grasses turning gold and rust as autumn crept across the hills. Silas worked the ranch with his usual diligence, but there was a lightness now, a sense of rightness in the land, in his home. Mercy moved among the house and grounds with confidence, the scars fading but never forgotten, reminders of the courage it took to survive. When the day came to take her into town to officially record her statement, she held her head high, supported by the quiet assurance Silas had given her. Her voice was firm, her words precise, each detail spoken without hesitation. Marshal Kane and the town officials listened, the weight of truth finally filling the room. Briggs's crimes could no longer be ignored. Justice, once delayed, was now delivered. Returning to the ranch, Silas and Mercy walked along the porch. The valley stretched before them, endless and forgiving. "Do you think it will always be like this?" she asked, a small hope threading her tone. "Life isn't always safe," Silas said, "but there are moments when it can be, when people are brave enough to do the right thing, to stand up. The darkness doesn't last forever, That's what matters. Mercy nodded, letting the words sink in. She could finally feel it, the release of fear, the promise of something better. In that quiet, golden light of evening, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she was free, where she could work and laugh and live without the constant shadow of threat. Silas watched her, noting the change in her posture, the steady look in her eyes. It was a victory not measured by weapons or walls, but by courage and survival. As the stars appeared in full brilliance overhead, Silas knew his life had shifted as well. Protecting Mercy had not been about heroism in the conventional sense. It had been about duty, about honor, about the kind of man he had always believed himself to be. And seeing her smile, fragile but real, he understood that sometimes the smallest acts of courage ripple far, wider than any battle fought with guns. The night air cooled, carrying the scent of the valley, of grass and earth and distant pine. Silas and Mercy sat together on the porch, letting the quiet stretch between them, unspoken but complete. The shadow that had once haunted the ranch was gone, replaced with a fragile, luminous peace. Sometimes the most important battles were not fought with gunfire, not with armies, or revenge, but with the courage to act when it mattered most. And sometimes, when a quiet rancher chose to stand and speak, the ripple of that decision could shake the very foundations of injustice itself. For Silas Ward and Mercy Whitmore, the truth had set them both free. The valley, the mountains, the ranch all bore witness to the quiet victory of courage, justice, and the enduring power of standing up for what was right. As the stars twinkled above, Mercy's laughter floated softly across the porch. A sound of freedom reclaimed. Silas leaned back in his chair, quiet satisfaction in his chest. For him, that was enough. Sometimes the world demanded no grand gestures, only the courage to face what had to be faced, and in doing so, transform lives. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another unforgettable tale where honor, courage, and justice collide in ways you never expected. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat to help us continue bringing these stories to life. Your support makes every story possible.